Without belief, it doesn't matter. It's like, awesome. That person must believe in me so much. I believe in themselves so much more than I believe in me, because if I was in that position, I probably would play the victim. And I'm not saying that's the case for me, but you start extremely small. You just have to start extremely small, but by not comparing to that, because that's not the average.
Of being way more successful than we are right now. It's not whether or not we can, it's whether or not we're willing to do it and we can figure out how. And that sort of chess game. So let me flip the script and ask you, when you compare to average, does that motivate you or does it disempower you? When I compare to average, it doesn't motivate me.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. I'm going to adjust myself here. Today, for episode number 1996, Self-Awareness and Standards. So Alan recommended a book. It is called Willpower by, please hold,
Roy Baumeister.
Is it just Roy?
I think there's another author as well.
Okay, I want to make sure that other author, it's Roy F. Baumeister and John Tierney. Willpower is the name of the book. And today, on the way home from the gym, I was listening to it, and they were talking about self-awareness. And you know, I love talking about self-awareness. Maybe, probably, most definitely my favorite thing in the world to talk about. And they were talking about how the downside of self-awareness is essentially you almost never meet your own standards. Essentially, is what they were saying. And again, there's like various studies that backs this up. And go ahead. What am I saying wrong?
No, you're not saying anything wrong. I want to know, because I read that chapter a while back.
Yeah.
But I don't remember the context. Was there an example that they gave or a research study or something?
Man. They were talking about they put a dot on a baby. I knew that would be a good one. And they can tell whether or not you have self-awareness if you look in the mirror and you either try to touch the mirror or you try to touch the dot on yourself.
Yeah, got it.
That was the lead into the chapter. I'm crying because I've been laughing so hard behind the scenes.
Nice job.
Thank you. I don't remember the rest of it.
I need to share something with you real quick.
Please, sure.
All right, Emilia and I last night, Sunday, we were recording the Conscious Couples Podcast, episode
Shout
160. Shout out to the Conscious Couples Podcast and Next Level Podcast Solutions that produces said podcast.
Shout out.
Yeah, shout out. And we were talking about how a client was talking about a bucket list thing and we kept it anonymous and all this. But right at the beginning of the episode, I opened the interview and I always ask ladies first, what's your intention for today's episode? And Emilia said bucket list. And when she was done talking, I literally put the mic away, turned to my right. And I said, well, I brought a bucket and a list. And she started dying. And I was like, actually, I don't have a bucket or a list. I'm not prepared at all. I just started off. But she lost it because she was really, part of her was like, oh my God, he actually brought a bucket. But I didn't. So anyways, short little funny story.
I respect your commitment to the gag.
I am getting better, I think.
If you go, you got to go. That's the thing. And that's the thing about, again, I'm not the funniest person in the world. I'm not a stand-up comedian. So I don't know how it works, but you got to commit. If you don't commit, doesn't matter.
I was committed.
Well, I appreciate that.
Crushed
Okay.
it.
I don't necessarily know the context. I don't know what the study was. Great book. I would recommend it based on how far I've gotten into it. So far, so good. But I think that's a really interesting thing because you and I have been talking about this for a long time. One of the ways that I have made myself feel better in things that I don't feel good at is I compare myself to the average. Right? So if we were to think about, and I was thinking about this before we did this episode, I don't want to do it this way because I think it would come off maybe kind of cold and insensitive. But if you were to sit down and you were to write out, okay, the average person where you live makes X amount of dollars. Mm-hmm. There was a way to rate their relationship. Out of 10, hypothetically, there was a way. There was a rating scale. Mm-hmm. I won't say physique. I'll say health. We'll say that. We'll say level of health and physique. And just go down the line. How
health,
disciplined
wealth,
they
and love,
are.
Baby.
Health, wealth, and love. How disciplined they are. How committed they are. How bright their future is. How well their habits are serving them. You could go down and make a list of this. If you're above that average, and you're somebody who really feels a challenge in believing in yourself and feeling good about yourself, there's a lot of opportunity for you to have a new perspective. If you're somebody who thinks you're crushing it at life and you're over, I'm not saying you're somebody who's like really building back up and you're coming from rock bottom. If you're coming from rock bottom, don't compare to that because that's not going to feel good. And also, circumstances change. But if you're somebody who has been guilty of being delusional in the past, of just saying like, yeah, no, I know it's all going to work out eventually when it's supposed to, and you're below average on all that, that might be a little bit of a wake-up call as well. And I think there are times where it's really, really beneficial to compare to the average, especially if it's something that you don't feel that good at yet. I don't think there's any downside to that. Now, if you just say, well, I'm good enough, there's no point in getting, I'm already better than average, there's no point in getting better, I would say that's not good because what you're not playing in is the average can potentially increase. Potentially. It's not guaranteed, right? I watched a video on YouTube yesterday. I watch weird shit on YouTube. And it was something along the lines of, here's why you feel terrible about yourself at the gym all the time. And I was like, hell yeah, I'm in on this. It's right up my alley. And it was what we've been talking about a lot. The algorithm feeds envy because envy is what we all aspire to. And what we're seeing is like the 1% results, right? And there was a point in the video where they were talking and he said, honestly, again, we don't have the data, but they said, honestly, the average gym goer might actually be less impressive than they were 5 years ago because there's way more people going and there's...
Whoa.
But
that
you
just
never
blew my
know.
mind.
Same. I was like, I've never thought of that.
That's so interesting. So my fitness modeling, fitness competitions, fitness coaching days, my Instagram was all fitness. And I would search fitness. When you're in the bodybuilding world, the men's physique athlete world, you see other people at the top of that game and the Steve Cooks, whoever it is. Steve Cook was one of the people that I followed. He's a very aesthetic stud. And what happens is the algorithm is showing you more and more and more of that type of content. But yet the world has actually gotten more out of shape. But your world view is completely off based on that. The mental health world, Emilia and her business partner, Bianca, so I coach Bianca, and I obviously coach Emilia as well because she's my intimate partner and future wife. But I'm very much immersed in the research of all the mental health challenges that the world is facing and how mental health statistics are spiking. Which, when you think about it, if you look at standards of living across the 8 billion people on this planet, the standards of living, like starvation is way down, death from certain illnesses are way down, all these different things. So there's so many things that are improving in the real utility world. However, in our consciousness, we're comparing to...
Sorry, just the way you said...
Yeah, it was brutal.
Just the way you said consciousness.
Conscientiousness and consciousness, I always mix those up. So in our consciousness, though, if I'm comparing to Steve Cook, it might fuck with me mentally if everything on my social media feed is people that are Steve Cook or better, it's going to completely mess with my self-concept if I am not very aware of it. And so the whole world has gotten more obese, statistically speaking, more out of shape, statistically speaking, okay? And that's one of the benefits of having enough abundance where starvation goes down, there's more food available on planet Earth due to farming technology, all this stuff. I remember reading a stat that in the U.S., there were 90% of workers in the early 1900s were all agriculture, and now it's only 3%. So with 3% of the workforce in agriculture, we can feed a lot more people. Not everyone, but a lot more. And there's so much more waste too. It's a whole thing. But anyways, but in our consciousness, bringing this back to Next Level You, if you're on social media, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, TikTok, whatever it might be, I guess it's X now, all these different things, threads, and you're seeing an algorithm that's showing you more and more and more of what you aspire to, it might make you think average is actually way higher than average actually is. Because average is actually really out of shape right now, less so than ever before. We just watched a movie called Boys in the Boat. Evolve Movie Club is tonight, and we were watching it this weekend. And
I have seen that one, believe it or not. That
it was
is
awesome.
A movie I have seen. It's a great movie.
What'd you think?
Great movie.
Great
very
movie.
inspirational.
Yeah. Talk about so during the Great Depression, just guy came from nothing, sleeping in a car, abandoned car, just all this stuff, rising into the Olympics. Fascinating to go back in time, but everyone back then in the movie as well, all the extras, they picked people that were lean. And all the athletes too in the photos. They show the photos at the end of the movie. Everybody's really lean. Well, there wasn't a lot of bodybuilders back then. And there also wasn't a lot of obesity back then. And so, yeah, to your point, Kev, that's really mind-blowing to realize that all of our worldview is being completely unconsciously shaped based on our social media preferences. And that can really fuck with us if we're not careful.
Well, our standards are being affected too. I was watching, I think I said this on a previous episode, but I introduced Taryn to Sam Sulik, one of my favorite bodybuilders.
Mm-hmm.
And we were watching one of his videos, and then I went in the bathroom to brush my teeth before bed, and I didn't have my shirt on, and I was like, you piece of shit. I just watched this dude who is so, and again, he's not natural, he uses steroids, but I'm not saying that from a place of like talking down. It's just, it's not apples to apples. He has very good genetics. He's 23. But it just, even that, I'm somebody who likes to think I'm in pretty good shape. I'm not compared to that. But if that's my standard, one of two things is going to happen. One of two things is going to happen if you have really high standards. One, you're going to be chasing that standard forever and it's going to motivate the hell out of you. Two, you're going to be miserable because you're going to say, well, man, there's no point in starting because I can never get there, or there's no point in continuing because I'm not that much closer to that. It's not about that. Now, here's the interesting, maybe the most interesting thing. He just competed in a bodybuilding show. Okay? This guy who went viral on TikTok, then started a YouTube channel and has like 4 million subscribers, just went crazy viral. And everybody's like, oh, he's just a dude who loves working out. He does, yes. Just competed in a bodybuilding show. Won the entire show. Cool. Hell yeah. I watched it. I was like, good for you, man. Then he went to the second biggest bodybuilding show there is in the world, and he won his class there. So now he is a professional bodybuilder. In 2 weeks, he went from like just a YouTuber who loved working out to a professional bodybuilder.
Yeah, but how long has he been working out?
Years. I mean, years and years and years.
How many?
Probably 6 or 7.
Yeah, and every day. I mean, he does a video every day,
yeah,
right?
But
so
just think of the perception. It went from a guy who is in world-class shape, just likes working out, to now like he is actually a professional bodybuilder. So that same dude, 2 weeks. He, out of nowhere, was like, yep, I'm competing this week. There was no plan for that. Nobody knew who was doing it. And he said, yeah, I'm just going to compete in this show. And then he won. It's easily.
He didn't do a prep?
He did a prep, but he does like a bulk, and then he does a cut, a pretty serious cut. But he's done that over and over again, and he's never competed.
So
he was like, whoops,
let me just...
surprise.
So he was at the bottom of his cut and was like, hey, let's give this a shot.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then, but that's just a really good...
It's a dude who's trying to get in shape for life. I remember when I used to do fitness competitions, Kev's like, dude, you're going to lose the show. I said, yeah, but I'm playing for like life though.
Yeah, well, there's no trophy for life. There is a trophy for this fucking bodybuilding show. Let me suffer. But I think that's just a unique example, but I don't know.
That dude has a lot of self-belief.
Yeah. Yeah. But if you were to look at him...
What do you think he's comparing to? Best in the world.
Yeah, the best in the world.
So
and what he's capable of as well.
Agreed. NLU listener, what is happening? I just wanted to jump in here and let you know, if you want to get to the next level faster, we have a free virtual monthly meetup at the first Thursday of every month. You can connect with like-minded people and become a bigger part of this amazing global community. The link to register will be in the show notes. Okay, so there's 3 things you can compare to. There's infinite things, but these are the 3 main ones that I've found in coaching. One is average. And in the book, they statistically are saying that's what most people compare to, is average. Although, that's not happening if your social media algorithms are messing with you.
Well,
right? So that might be screwing things up.
It's
It
definitely
is.
it's definitely screwing things up.
And then you can compare to and compete with your own potential. That's what I try to do. I've told Kev this, like, and you're like, well, I don't know what my potential is, so no. It's like, okay.
No. Yeah, that's a fact.
And then the third one is you can compete with the best and compare to the best. Notice how I say compete. That's like an accidental thing. So when I first decided to get into the self-improvement space 10 years ago, I would compare myself to Tony Robbins. And I still am in a way, but not in the way that I think people think. So I'm not, oh, well, he's taller and I'm short. It's not like that. It's more, okay, this is how he did it. Let me reverse engineer his entire career. Let me understand what he did and why he did it and how he did it, and read between the lines of every interview. I've studied the whole industry. I've studied everyone in it. And let me figure out where we fit in that and where we want to fit in that. And you and I have had thousands of conversations behind the scenes, literally, about this for the last 8 years. I've, all the different people, Gary Vee, Tony, what's the difference? Og Mandino, all the past, Jim Rohn, all the blah, blah, blah. So that's just from a business perspective. When I asked Kev what motivates you more, winning or losing, he said winning.
All the time.
For me, it's losing, for sure. So I compare to the best to feel like a loser so that I get more motivated. And I know that sounds detrimental, but it doesn't. It's not detrimental for someone who has high self-belief and has control over their self-worth and self-esteem. For someone who, Michael Jordan used to say this, and again, I use him as an example because everyone knows the name. Most people know the name. I know there's younger people that might not know. But Michael Jordan used to say, I can't compare to other people. I can't compare to Larry Bird. I can't compare to these other people because I'm already better than them. So if I compare to them, I'm going to get worse. I need to compare to my potential. And I've always resonated with that. To me, I'm different than Tony. I'm different than Jim Rohn. I'm different than all these people. I'm an engineer. They're not engineers. Brendan Burchard, we went to the event. I was comparing to the stage. You were comparing to people in the audience. It makes sense. Mm. And I felt terrible when we came home, and you felt really good, which makes sense as well. But after feeling terrible, what do you do about it? And I think that that's a question that we all have to ask ourselves, because even this past weekend, I had a really tough Sunday, and Sundays are my big learning days. So I get a lot done around the house, and that's when I do my studying. I study the industry. I study people in it. I study different books. I got a new book I'm so pumped about. It's by Dan Heath, called Reset, which is exactly what I need. But yesterday was a tough day where it's like, okay, I can't work any harder really, and I've never really gotten to that place in my life where this is going to be detrimental if I try to push this any farther. I'm really approaching burnout. So I have to really start to reset and figure out what I'm going to do. But to bring this back to comparison, I did watch some things yesterday that frustrate me with the level of impact other people are having in comparison to you and I. And I think that that's good for me because I woke up fired up, ready to change a bunch of things, and you and I have already had conversations that are going to actually improve our life. So I'll flip the script now. If you're on my end and you really have a fire within you to compete, not in the negative sense, but in the sense of trying to be better and trying to do something that you know you're capable of. Like, I know we're capable of being way more successful than we are right now. It's not whether or not we can, it's whether or not we're willing to do it and we can figure out how, and that sort of chess game. So let me flip the script and ask you, I know we only have 6 minutes. When you compare to average, does that motivate you or does it disempower you? When I compare to average, it doesn't motivate me.
It depends on what it's in. So the more I've spoken and the better I've gotten as a speaker, the higher my standards have gotten. So I would say if I was to take an L and take a loss, that would probably motivate me. But in the beginning, it didn't.
Right.
So I think it's directly connected to belief.
Did it motivate you going and looking at yourself after Sam Sulek?
No. I hated myself. I didn't actually hate myself. That's a strong statement.
Yeah, it can be really tough. Those moments are tough.
I didn't feel good about myself, no.
And then you're like, shit, like how am I going to do this without testosterone, right?
I'm never going to get to that. And that's a fact.
No, you can't. You can't.
But I think so you said if you take an L, you have to figure out how to keep going or whatever, right? But it's the same on the other end.
How to get better.
How to get better. If On the other end, it's how do I just stay in the pool? If you're somebody who struggles with self-belief and you take a loss, I don't expect you to jump right to, okay, how do I get better from this? I don't expect that at all. My thought process was, how do I avoid this becoming the last time I ever do the thing? That's what kept me in the pool, so to speak.
So people quit when they get a big L.
Of course.
I had a client I was on with earlier.
If you were winning all the time, you'd never quit. Of course. That's like you do something and it goes I'm going to post on social media every day for 30 days. Awesome. Awesome. At the end of 30 days, you have 4 likes and 3 hate comments. Well, this ain't it. I'm going to go to something else.
Yeah. This is one of the best things about NLU. If you're out there watching or listening, I'm so grateful you're here. Because Kev can always speak from a different frame. Because I've gotten terrible results on social media basically for 10 years. And I'm never going to not post.
That's fair.
And so some of them were really good. Like in my fitness days, I did well. But it doesn't, whether or not I'm winning or losing doesn't change whether or not I'm going to do the thing.
Yeah.
Right? And I know that sounds probably
That's
arrogant.
just a different mindset.
Yeah. Well, the question becomes, that all comes down to belief. Okay, let's go underneath that instead of me just saying some arrogant statement. It's not whether or not I can win on social media. I just haven't figured out how yet. Right? I mean, 10 years, you'd think I would have figured more out than this, but it's not about, like, I know eventually it will be better than it is now. And I just know that's true. I know that's true. Why do I know that's true? Let me ask you this. Why don't you know that's true?
I don't necessarily not know it's true.
There's no one that can't eventually master social media, right? I mean, that's...
I disagree with. No. There are some people that are not going to master social media.
But they could if they wanted to.
Not everyone. No, not everyone.
Okay, not everyone.
I don't think wanting to is enough. Wanting to is important. It's necessary. It's necessary. It is. It's necessary. But there's a lot of people that want to swim that drown. Unfortunately, it's just not. There's certain things that I don't know. There's certain.
Do you believe everyone can learn how to swim? This is good. Anytime I say that, what I mean is factoring in all the things that it would take, depending on their circumstances, to actually be able to do it, and whether or not they would do it. Mm-hmm.
So no.
Because physically, I mean it whether or not it's possible. So I have a client who was born with no arms and no legs, who literally swims. Straight up. It's the coolest thing ever. So inspiring.
The amount of effort and belief and grit.
Miraculous.
Right? That.
Yeah. And she believes in herself a ton. I mean, she's amazing. But I think that's one of the things that's really important about her situation. She doesn't play the victim at all. She's amazing. And I think that when you see someone who was born with no arms and no legs swimming, it kind of eliminates anyone's excuse for not being able to swim, in a way. And I think that can be really hard for people, so that's another conversation. But again, this all comes to what you compare to, right? Shout out to this client anonymously. She is living, breathing proof that if you, Kev, have told yourself a story that you can't swim, that you are inaccurate. Because obviously you can. Right. And I think that's one of the reasons why getting better, and this is a side tangent because I know we got to go, but being really successful is a mirror. Her being really successful is a bigger mirror than you being really successful, because she had every quote unquote reason not to be. Right. That's my favorite part of coaching her. It's so inspiring.
Well, I think that's why when you have, like, people have certain guests on, because it's super inspiring. It's like, hey, this person came from circumstantially a much more challenging place. Even if they had the same exact childhoods, the same exact education, like there are things different for them than there are for you. Kind of, not what's your excuse, but maybe that's inspiration for you to keep going when you don't think you can.
Do you think that can be disempowering at times?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because without belief, it doesn't matter. It's like, awesome. That person must believe in me so much. I believe in themselves so much more than I believe in me.
Yeah.
Because if I was in that position, I probably would play the victim.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying.
But then
that's
how do
the
you
case
get out
for
of
me,
that, right? So that's another question. That's another conversation.
You start extremely small.
Yeah.
You just have to start extremely small, but by not comparing to that, because that's not the average.
Yeah. Good
right?
point.
That's what
Everyone at the top of any industry that has a ton of self-belief, all of their advice is less optimal than it could be.
I think it's for other people that have a lot of self-belief.
Which statistically is the lower. Yeah,
think
that's
that's
the
who
unique
they're-
thing about NLU is you and I have these dialogues where genuinely I didn't even know that I had high self-belief before Kevin told me. Like I knew it was high intuitively, but it wasn't like that was a conscious thought. Oh, I believe in myself so much. Like this was just what I thought.
Yeah.
And then people around me acted like they did too, including you. So I thought everyone had that. You know, I think there's a lot of people out there who have high self-belief that think everyone does. And then there's people who have high self-belief that don't think they do, which is a whole nother thing.
That is a whole nother thing. Real quick, I'm giving a speech to a group of men. One of our clients has
Nice.
a kind of a group of men that he leads. First question I'm going to ask is, on a scale of 0 to 10, where's the average self-belief for these
Nice.
people? Because it's completely different.
Yeah.
If they all have super high self-belief, I'm going to come in with some extra aggression, and we're going to have higher ownership and higher expectations. But if that's not the case, that's not how I don't want to approach it that way.
That is the best pre-frame for any speech or training ever of all time.
Well,
like,
you can
I need
use
to
it
do that
for
from now
3 easy payments of $4,997.
on. I seriously, we have to do that before every speech.
For sure.
Like when I went and spoke to the WPI kids, I bet you their self-belief is statistically higher since it's such a prestigious, expensive school. But it's probably not. I probably thought it was higher than it really was, and I think I scared the shit out of them a little bit.
Understandable. All right, we got to get out of here because I want to make sure you're on time-ish to your next meeting. Next Level Nation, if you're listening to this on Tuesday, the day it drops, 2 days from today, we have our free monthly meetup. We'll have the link in the show notes that will take you to the website. You can register there. It's totally free. Great opportunity to take a deeper dive into NLU. Again, we have the Dreamliner on Amazon. Next Level Live 2025 is coming up on April 5th. 2025. There's a lot of things going on, so head on over to nextleveluniverse.com. That has all the links, all the happenings at NLU. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Keep it next level. Next Level Nation.